Good evening, everyone. This is Father Luke here at St. Dominic Parish. Welcome to our February Zoom night. Tonight we have really special guests. We have Shayla Elm and Jude Karstensen from Christ in the City, an incredible ministry here in Denver. But before we get to them, let us begin this night as we begin all our nights with a prayer, and I will invite Father Jim to offer our prayers. So without further ado, Jim, take it away.
And welcome to Shayla and Jude, and to everybody else that's online. Let's begin and place ourselves in the presence of God, who's with us, whether we're together physically or virtually. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. We give you thanks, Lord, for the gift of life, and for the opportunities that we have to serve you through especially the homeless tonight, those who are less well off. That is where we discover Christ in the fullest way. We ask you, Lord, to open our eyes, our ears, and all of our senses during this presentation tonight. We ask you to send your blessing upon our presenters and soften our hearts so that we might be able to translate their words into actions that serve you, especially among the homeless. And we make this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father Jim. And now, without further ado, let me introduce to you Shayla Elm and Jude Karstensen, again, from Christ in the City. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Again, we really want to thank you guys for being so willing to come do this with us in such a public way. We really wanted to be able to highlight what you guys do as St. Dominic's this year is focusing on outreach to the poor, both locally and internationally. And Christ in the City, at least for me in my experience, is one of those organizations that has a lot of wisdom and does it with incredible integrity, with incredible charity, with incredible heart. And to hear from you guys firsthand about what is homelessness and how someone becomes homeless, and then to be able to glean from you what maybe some of those best practices are really important for us to hear and to hopefully be edified through you. And so just on the get-go, thank you for all you guys do, and thank the missionaries who work with you. But I'm going to let you guys then take it over, and hopefully you guys can illuminate us as you guys, I know you can. So thank you, and have at you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Go ahead and share the screen to our presentation real quick. Keep going. Well, thank you all so much for hosting us. It's a real treat for us to be able to present something that's just very near and dear to our hearts, something I find a lot of passion for. It's been a joy to be with Christ in the City. I've been here for about a year and a half at this point. So I came to Denver from Ohio. I'm from a small town originally in Circleville back in August of 2019. So love Denver a lot. Love what we do.
Yeah, and I was hired at the beginning of September. So I've only been here for 4.5 months, but I moved here from North Dakota. So the snow I'm very familiar with here. But yeah, I am loving it as well a lot.
It's awesome to present to St. Dominic's as well. I've gone to mass there a couple of times. So some of the missionaries make it there. They've made it their Sunday mass every week, and we're only just a mile down the street, so it's really close to home. And having some of the novice brothers too down for lunch in the park today was really cool. I was talking to a homeless friend of ours, his guy named Jacob, and he was like looking at the white habits, like, bro, are those guys like Jedi masters? I was like, no, they're just religious. I had to explain a little bit, but so they definitely made an impact today as well. It was really cool. But to start off, we just love to show you guys a short video that kind of delves into the history of Christ in the City and gives, I think, a good gist of our mission and how we serve the poor.
characteristics of our whole society is people isolated from one another. They're cut off. And the homeless population is just an extreme example of this. The friendship called using invisible ones. Part of what we recognize was the need to actually make the invisible visible, because they could be objects of love and objects of transformation for us. Everyone recognizes that John Paul II's visit to Denver was extraordinary. I came to Denver after he was then here, and people kept saying, John Paul changed everything here. It's the perfect place to start Christ in the city. Young people with an integrated vision of what it means to live a Catholic life, radically dedicated to caring for those in need, and radically dedicated to spreading the good news of Jesus Christ. With Archbishop Chapman said, I believe in this vision, I think the church needs this vision. That said to the Catholic community in Denver, to the Archbishop behind it, that opens so many doors for us. It's not about an ideology, it's not about something political, it is just very simply bringing the presence of Christ and the love of Christ to those who most need it. And so we had this vision, but we needed help. And the Lord provided the right people. The thing I most remember from when I first met Mark Bauman was the long ride up this elevator into this executive of a major global corporation's office, walking into an office larger than I'd ever been in before. And what we found there was not what you picture as a corporate executive. I met a humble man who's serious about his faith and a real generous. And that was the beginning of a friendship that I value as highly as any friendship in my life. I had a partner in launching this. He came to my wife and I, and he asked us if we would be willing to fund the start of this program. As challenges arose, I would try to be available to help. And that could be anything from changing light bulbs or fixing things that were broken to just hanging out with the missionaries. And when we started it, we had no idea what it could become. And I think because we were blessed to have Yvonne leading Christ in the city, I think it grew in a very, very organic way that opened itself up to becoming what it is today.
Jonathan Ringers was one of my first teachers, and within one of the first classes, he talked about the vision of Christ in the city.
Just so dope that I didn't know her name at that time, and she just said, Dr. Reyes, I want to do that. And when I said to her, okay, you started, her response wasn't a laugh. It was just, okay, you will. And she did.
At that point, we needed some very crazy people to test it out.
We're doing something that virtually nobody else does. There's a number of places for the homeless to go to sleep in town. There's places for them to go get food, but there's no place in town that sends people out to just encounter them. Encounter is one of the most important words in our whole movement. There are certain people who are described, John Paul II, Mother Teresa, to be described as the kind of person when you're in a conversation with them, it's like you're the only person in the universe. This is kind of what we mean by encounter, but these are immortal beings with a destiny that will outlast the entire universe. And part of our goal is to have that gift that John Paul II had, and Mother Teresa had, of making the other person feel the fullness of their dignity, that they're the only person in the universe and they're the most important thing in the universe to give them. There's young people who have made heroic decisions for Christ. But in Benedict XVI phrase, they've been conquered by love. I'm proud of them because they're going to do way more than just what they did in the year they were here. They're actually transforming the world everywhere they go. People see them and say, what's different about you? Why are you not anxious when the rest of the world is? Why are you not inclined to hatred when the rest of the world is condemning one another? People ask that question. Given ourselves in love to those most in need. It hasn't been bitterness enough. It hasn't made us poverty. Love those. Our goal is that just these missionaries don't need it.
For everyone, just FYI, the audio will be made available. The whole video will be made available on our website. If it was difficult to hear, we apologize. So just don't worry about that. All right.
Is there any other audio problems? Father Luke, just want to double check real quick. Can you guys hear us okay here?
Yeah, I think the problem was in the end, the video was just too, it was too much data going through. And so the connection was just a little.
Okay.
It was lagging a little bit.
Yeah, and
Okay.
we couldn't hear everything, but don't worry, we'll put the whole video up on the website on our Lenten portal so that people can have access to it and go back and see it. But I think we got the gist of through the images and what we were able to hear for some of it, what's going on. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, just to recap, I guess then, Christ in the City, it's not your typical homeless ministry. You really have a different approach, one that's a little less focused on the physical needs or the material needs of the poor, and much more focused on the relationships or lack thereof, and the needs for community and just interpersonal interaction the homeless really don't have. And kind of our bread and butter way of doing that is every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, we do street walks. And so I and 4 other missionaries walk the same area of the Capitol and like Colfax area of downtown Denver, and just get to know the people who are camping out there, who spend the time there, to grow in hopefully consistent relationships. And that's really where we're able to speak into their lives more and kind of meet them and the loneliness that they might feel. And so missionaries are spread throughout the city, but our methodology, at least, is through street walks as well as lunch in the park. But in order to serve the people that we meet out there, we also need to kind of know who they are, where they're coming from, and the different demographics out there, which Sheila has something for us to say.
Yeah, so like you said, it's really important to kind of understand and even look at what numbers that we can. So I brought a few slides from this report. It's called the Metro Denver Homeless Initiative, and every year they do a point in time count. So it happens at the end of January, and what they do is they will pick a night in January and they will go out and they will count all of the homeless in Denver on that one night. So this report is actually taken from January of 2020, so it would have been over a year ago. But the 2021 report happened recently, but we're still waiting for the numbers to come out. So unfortunately, we don't have the 2021 numbers yet. Or sorry, excuse me, for the 2021 report yet. But we do have last year's numbers, but it would be very intriguing to see how the numbers shifted over COVID and if we did see an increase of homelessness into this year. But just to explain this a little bit, so the number of the overall count is 6,104. And so this is encompassing all of those who are living in homelessness in the Denver downtown area and then the surrounding counties, the Denver metro area. So this also includes those who are living on the streets, like in tents and sleeping bags, those who are living in shelters, those who are living in transitional housing, and yeah, like those who are living in safe havens and different housing like that. So it's all encompassing. It's not just those who we very much see on the streets, but what the people that we are serving at Christ City are more so those who are on the streets. That's like about, in downtown Denver, that's right around 1,000, maybe a little bit under 1,000 people. And that is the population that we're really trying to on the streets, on the sidewalks. They're the ones, panhandling or flying signs. They're the ones who are very visible to our eyes and visible to the public and a part of society. Moving on to break down the statistics a little more, you can see that it has grown exponentially since, this is only back to 2018, but we've seen an increase of 800 homeless people just in the past couple of years. And so, like I said, it'd be very intriguing to see what are our numbers now. We estimate that they definitely will be more because of COVID. People lost jobs and things like that. So I definitely am predicting that there will be a higher number than the 6,104. Breaking down into different demographics. Race, we definitely see the majority of homeless people are white, with 58% being white. And then we also see the next highest percentage, 25% of Black or African American individuals. The age range, there's quite a few different age ranges here, but the most is from the ages of 25 to 64, with that highest amount of homeless people being in the age range of 45 years old to 54 years old. So we definitely are used to seeing that middle-aged range out on the streets, and those are a lot of the people that we are interacting with. Something interesting that I also found from this report that I wanted to point out was that there are 529 people who are under the age of 18. So these are, children that are technically homeless. Of course, they're not the ones like living on the streets. They're the ones in shelters and in, transitional housing and things like that. But I just thought that was very interesting to recognize that this is not just, that one old man that you saw on the side of the street. This is like a deep seated, issue in our society, and especially in Denver. It's like, this is affecting families, 529 kids, and so I think that's just really important to point out that poverty runs deep, and that there is definitely a call to action, a call to do something about it. Looking into why people become homeless in the first place. I think it's really intriguing because we have these stereotypes, and I myself even have had these stereotypes coming into like starting to work with the homeless. Why would someone become homeless? Like, are they lazy? Are they, just addicted to drugs and alcohol? Are they, just kind of resisting services? And it seems like something that could be easily fixed. And so what I wanted to point out with these percentages here is that, 35% of those who have become homeless, they said it was because of unemployment. And so that's just like a huge thing. It's like, you don't know why that person necessarily became homeless. They could have lost their job. They could have, had a family breakup or a big relationship issue. They could have been evicted from their living, or it could have been the high cost of housing. But also we do see substance abuse can be an entering into homelessness, with 18% of homeless in Denver saying that that was their cause of homelessness. The people that we're working with, so this 1,000, around 1,000 people that I had mentioned that are chronically homeless, out of that many people, we have seen, and then through this report, that 50% or 49% do now struggle with substance abuse. These are the people that you oftentimes see, struggling with substance abuse on the side of the road. These people that are can be drunk or high, or just really struggling. Also struggling with mental health. So you see 37% of people are struggling with mental illness. We're living in homelessness. And really it just causes you to think, like, if you remember back, 18% said that was the reason why they became homeless, or that was the reason why they became homeless. But now it's 49% are struggling with it. And it kind of causes you to reflect, like, what are they enduring? Why is it such a high percentage? Why are half of people struggling with this? And it really causes you to think about the tremendous suffering they must be going through, and that substance abuse, or just like, using drugs or using alcohol to try and cope with this, is like the only way that they can get by. And it's not just from, being cold, probably, not being the most hygienic, having family problems, but it's also like just their everyday lives of people walking right by them and not seeing them. And it's a loneliness, it's a, turning inward on yourself, where that causes you to turn to other things. It causes you to turn to drugs, because that's the only way that you can cope with it. And that's the only way that you can like try and make it okay, or try and get through it. So yeah, there is a lot of both substance abuse and mental illness amongst our homeless friends.
Yeah, even just like trying to go to the bathroom is like a struggle for them.
Right.
Next slide. or trying to find a place to wash your clothing or take a shower. You'd have to walk miles for them. Some people have like frostbite, so they can't walk. It's really painful. So a lot of things that really contribute to the problem. Make
Right.
it really hard.
And that's why, like, what I'd already kind of touched on this, but this loneliness that they're feeling too, and all of the reasons, the causes why we had previously stated why people have become homeless. At the root of it, we see this rupture of relationships, and so we see it people who are isolated, they're lonely, they feel like they have no one to turn to and no one to confide in or to be their friend. So I just wanted to do a thought experiment with you really quick. And I want you to think about all the people that you could turn to if you became homeless one day. And who could you turn to take you in and have you stay at their home for a few weeks, a couple months even. I personally can probably think of 50 or more people that would be willing to take me in, and imagine not having anyone or not feeling like you can turn to anyone and being so filled with shame that you don't feel comfortable enough to reach out to someone for help. And that imagine how isolating that would be. So really at the root of it, we just see this very much brokenness. We see people that are just aching for love and aching for connection and human relationships. And that's what really try and do, is just provide this sort of steady relationship.
A lot of people too, they don't just have like rupture with family members or kind of like the nucleus of their social groups. Truly they have like a rupture with society. It's a deep isolation that severs them from people. And as just like a pedestrian on the street walking past somebody, I kind of represent society to them sometimes, and the way that I look at them or the way that I treat them impacts what they think society thinks of them. It creates, or it either contributes to or breaks through that sense of isolation. And I just have some questions for us, to reflect on, just kind of wanting to air out some honest impressions. Like I'm sure we've all either seen a homeless person, interacted with them, maybe met somebody on an entrance ramp or exit ramp. I'm sure we've all served or met people in some capacity. And oftentimes I think like if we're honest with ourselves, they probably smell bad, right? Like they act kind of funky, or they're erratic in their behavior. They look disheveled or unclean or unshaven or untrustworthy. At least for me, prior to Carson City, like I usually looked at the homeless with repulsion and fear. I was really unsure of how to interact with them or what to do, or anytime when I even wanted to do something for them, I just felt like there's such an like unpassable gap between me and them. Like why would they want to hear what I have to say? Why would they want me to talk to them or anything like that? So I was very dissuaded from interacting with them. Just really didn't know what to do. Didn't feel comfortable. And even still, on some of my street walks, there's a lot of people that have to like take a deep breath and say, nope, this is a person. I'm gonna go look at them and see them that way, and step into that kind of fear or that awkwardness. And so I just want to, it's honest. It's like it's a normal experience to feel something awkward, like to feel uncomfortable around the homeless. I think a lot of us have that, but unfortunately it does create a consequence. It contributes to this feeling that if you're homeless, like you're invisible. I can think about all the times that I've either looked across the street or avoided them or had really short interactions or just tried to not interact with the homeless as much as possible. I remember speaking with a guy, gosh, sometime back in November, asking him a little bit about just like what's it like to be homeless. And we met him at his camp and he has things all around him. It was kind of a mess, and he's like, man, it's like it's not as like I don't have a home, like that's kind of hard, and I'm cold and I'm hungry, but honestly it's the way people treat me, man. Like they look at me like I'm gonna bite them. And I just felt so called out. I was like, oh my gosh, I have looked at homeless people with such fear so many times. Like what must that feel like? And a few years ago, Carson City interviewed a handful of its regulars to lunch in the park, a handful of friends that we've had for a number of years, and just asked them, like, what is it like to be homeless on the streets? So let us know again if the audio doesn't work for this video, but I think their words are very eloquent to this point.
Material poverty, you can always satisfy with material. The unwanted, the unloved, the uncared, the forgotten, the lonely. This is much greater poverty. Then we see that loneliness being relieved, that people are going through a torture of being unwanted, rejected. And I think that is the greatest suffering and the greatest poverty today.
What do you think a person should do when they pass a homeless person on the streets?
It's at least acknowledge the fact that hey, they're still a person there and they're homeless.
I know when I was on the street, a lot of times I felt just plain ignored. The worst part is how people treat you. You know, they mainly look at me like I'm more of a person. Recognize this person. Anybody on my emergency contact? But I'd like to.
I think Mother Teresa said it really well. Oftentimes, the thing that's the hardest on the streets, contrary to what at least I thought when I came to Christ in the City, it's not being cold, it's not being hungry. Those things are very hard and oftentimes unendurable. But what really cuts to the heart is this feeling of isolation. I am unwanted, I am unloved, I am uncared for. That the more we ignore people, really contributes to. It's just this barrier of invisibility that oftentimes is hard to be broken, that causes the deepest suffering and the deepest separation with society. It is the poverty of people and the poverty of loneliness. But that's the breach that Christ in the City tries to step into.
Yeah, and so what we really have been trying to form here at Christ in the City is a culture of encounter, which in itself is countercultural. So countercultural to what our society is today of being very, self-motivated and self-focused. Our missionaries really try and step out of themselves and embark on this mission, for the greater glory of the kingdom, for Christ himself, but also to go out and encounter Christ in the homeless, Christ in the poor. And so, like Jude mentioned earlier, they do this by missionary teams. There are five missionary teams, and they go all throughout Denver. They walk the same route every few times a week. And they go out and they just meet the same people and start creating these relationships, and just what they provide is not only love but consistency. They are consistently giving their time to these people who have, people walk by them every day, and that can be like very healing for someone who feels invisible, to finally feel seen and to feel heard. And so what they really try and do is just remind people of their dignity and their worth. The missionaries aren't necessarily going out and preaching on the street corners. That's not the mission. The mission is to live the way of Christ, to live the way of the faith, by going out and putting yourself in a situation where you can receive someone and where they can hopefully in return receive you, and then they will get to receive all the great things about you, and they will get to receive your faith. So it's not, like I said, it's not every conversation's about God. That's not how it goes. It's a lot of, random colloquial things where it's, we're talking about the weather, or we are, talking about the last meal they had, or talking about families and things like that. But also the missionaries are just so there and so available to receive anyone that wants to share the faith. They're there to receive anyone that is struggling or has questions about the faith. Or anyone who just really just needs someone to lean on. The missionaries are there. One thing I've been really reflecting on a lot lately, and that I just see with the missionaries so evidently, is that no one is rich in time. And so every human person has the same 24 hours in the day. And so what the missionaries are doing, they're going out and they're not handing out money. Yes, they hand out some snacks or hand warmers if they have them in their pack. But really what they're going out and doing, the majority of the mission is they're going out and they're giving time. And so no one's rich in time, but when you are able to like give of your time, that's just like such a unique gift, and it's a gift that's honestly priceless. And so that's something that our mission hopes to instill in our culture, is this culture of encounter and going out and spending time, even wasting time with people, just so that they can, you know, feel loved and feel the love of Christ. Um, the measure of success is not, we are not necessarily trying to get people off of the streets. That is not our role. Our role is to walk with people, to sit with people. If people want housing and they want options, we know them. We know where to lead them and where to help them. But our role simply is just to go out and just to be with them. And that can be very humanizing for the homeless. Just going by and calling them by name, that is just like some friends don't hear their name for days, sometimes even weeks. And so that can be just super healing for them just to hear their name. And then us even just calling them friends is like such a way to just really recognize their humanity, their dignity, that these people are worthy of friendship and that we want to give our time to them without any cost. Like we just want to freely give and give love to them. So yeah, this next video I want to introduce is a few of the stories of our friends on the street and kind of their experience with Christ in the city.
So I was really happy. I had a job. All of a sudden, my back gave out, and I was diagnosed with spinal stenosis, and so I became fully disabled, and I became homeless. Couldn't pay rent. I couldn't do anything.
Some trials and tribulations and ended up out on the streets. I was still working at a car wash. I was going to school. Every night when I get off of work, I just take my bag and go find a place, find myself. I didn't talk to other people. I didn't hang out with other people. And it took about 3 weeks before I got here. And it was hard just to not talking to anybody for 3 weeks.
People kept telling me get a job. Yeah, I even had one person tell me to jump off a bridge, kill myself. I really did. I lost myself.
They have to drink and use to get away from the streets, fall asleep at night. And I became one of those people who started drinking quite heavily.
I believe I was on 16th Street Mall. I was doing what was called panhandling, flying a sign, trying to get some money from people passing by. And some missionaries were doing their walkthrough and started talking to us. Every day, and this is fine. And they don't just say, "Oh, how you doing?" and they're move on to the next person. They'll sit with you forever, and until you are done talking about everything that's going on. And that's how they treat you like a person.
Went to several of the fruit lines and came across a place in the city down in the park one day. Went and got lunch, and a couple of the kids came over and sat down, said, "Hey, can we sit and talk with you for a while?" And that was how I first met Joe. And we just started talking, good sense of humor, so we immediately hit it off many a times I found Wednesdays in the park were one of those days when I could leave the bottle aside and go and just have fun. But at the same time, some of the biggest hands up that I've gotten have been from them. I still have the letters that Joe and Bob wrote to me. Tickets racked up just from some stuff from sleeping on the streets. Like the letters of, I guess, prayer for witness, judge, which would definitely pivotal and helpful. There were several times that I got those letters out of my bag when I was at the bottom of the barrel and feeling terrible. I get those letters out and read them, and it made me feel good about myself again, which was skiing is one of the first things that gather, right? The education field. It's almost like they're little tokens of something good in a point in my life where everything was bad. Just knowing that there were still people that thought I was a good person, that treated me like a good person. That meant a lot to me too.
Yeah, I think watching the method of Christ in the City, which very much models after Mother Teresa of just kind of being with the homeless, it's beautiful. Working with the service resistant, these what we call chronically homeless, is really difficult. A lot of times they are so dejected about the systems in place or society. Again, that isolation, that being cut off, or they have so many felonies or so many other circumstances and things that they have to jump through that it is just a nightmare to get off the streets, to get housing. Incredibly long wait lists, all sorts of things that keep them on the streets. It's really difficult. And then you tie in all of the emotions that they feel about it, and whether or not they feel apathetic or dejected or whatever. It's incredibly difficult to show them that like they deserve something better than concrete, and to walk with them to the coalition, to walk with them to South Street Health Clinic or to the St. Francis Center to sign up for these IDs and to begin the process, to start the snowball rolling down the hill that can often take months or years for people to finally get housing. It's really cool to meet people that are in housing currently and to know that like Christ in the City missionaries of years gone by were the ones that kind of fronted that effort. A lot of homeless really need the encouragement. They need a friend or a mentor or somebody to walk with them in a way that a social worker just really can't. I remember hearing a story about a friend who had known Christ in the City missionaries for 2 years, and he's someone we consider a professional homeless man. He'd just been out on the streets for decades and was, kind of content to be that way. And finally, one day he's like, guys, like I think I will get my ID, and that was just like landmark. Like they just couldn't believe he wanted to do that. And so they were walking through the process, went to DMV and sorted through the paperwork, birth certificate, all that kind of stuff. And at the end of it, when he was holding his ID, he looked at them, he's like, guys, like I think I could have done this on my own, but I think I just needed somebody to believe in me. And that's the role that we try to fill as friends and consolers to the homeless.
Yeah, definitely. And just to like use this image of Mary and John at the foot of the cross and kind of just going right along with what Jude just said, we are there with them. We're there with them in the rawness, and we are there with them in their brokenness. We're there with them in their suffering, just like Mary and John were there with Jesus' suffering. They couldn't take him off the cross, nor would they, but they were there with him. They were experiencing it with him, and they were there, just being with him at the foot of the cross. So that's sometimes, that's how we approach the homeless. It's just we are there with them, experiencing their humanity with them. One thing that was just super unique was just about what Jake in that last video, what he had said is like esteem is the first thing to go. And so if we're just able to instill a little bit of self-esteem, that's huge. That's going miles, way more than maybe just helping them get into a house and then saying see you later. It's this lifelong self-worth that we are trying to instill in them, and that we are telling them that they're worth it. And so that's kind of how, we walk with them in their brokenness, but then we also like instill in them this notion of self-worth.
Yeah, Yeah, I think a favorite story of mine. Last year, my team met a guy named Chuck. Gosh, this was like November of 2019, and we just said hello to him, And I remember thinking like, wow, this is a really tall, really like weird, erratic guy. Like I don't know if I want to talk to him, and was very surprised with how genial he was with us and how much he wanted to chat. Just had pretty superficial conversation, chatting about the weather. Oh, you're from here, you're from there, or whatever. And then yeah, said goodbye. It was a very short interaction. Next week, saw him again, said hello. Had a similarly superficial conversation. But on the third week that we saw him again, we were just sitting down there on the sidewalk, and he started to open up about his life and his time in the service, and how his wife passed away, and his struggles with addictions, and how he's found God through that. This beautiful, beautiful story and testament to his resolve and the power of God in his life. And by the end of the conversation, it came to kind of a natural end. We were getting up to leave and saying goodbye. And he's like, guys, man, I just got to thank you. You're sitting here and talking to me just means so much. You don't know, like, this is better than if a guy gave me like $100. And that just struck me. I'll never forget that story of how much it meant for him, for me to sit and listen to him. I couldn't believe it. Somebody who wanted, he's homeless. Like, I would have expected that he wanted food or clothing or a place to sleep more, but rather he wanted me to listen to him. And I think it was so powerful for him because for once in a short while, somebody was able to break that barrier of invisibility. Somebody was able to step out representing society and like kind of cut through the isolation that he normally feels. And so it's a beautiful privilege. Honestly, it's a privilege to be. I'm in a place to serve and speak to the homeless. It's no small thing. But what I want to encourage you to, what I discovered is that talking to the homeless is incredibly normal. It's just like meeting any other stranger. I start all my conversations with like, "Hey, how are you doing?" or "How's the weather?" I talked a lot about the weather on the streets, or other just really trite, superficial things, to get the conversation rolling. But like, a tool I want to give to you guys is we use an acronym called HOPE. It's kind of, I keep it in my back pocket whenever the conversation lulls or it's awkward. I'm trying to think of something to say. And so we talk about hobbies. People like to fish, or I've met a lot of women on the streets who like to macrame or play guitar or things like that. So there's a whole variety of hobbies that people enjoy spending their time doing. There's a lot of like craftsmen out there that they make their living that way too. So that's a conversation starter. Or occupations, where have you worked in the past? People have just really rich stories that, like, little questions like, oh, what was one of your favorite jobs, really cracks open an opportunity for them to share, or places they've been, where they traveled, where they'd like to go, or endearment. That just kind of for us means like family, asking like, oh, do you have family in Denver? These are just conversation starters that oftentimes the homeless, there's been a lot of times that I've been talking to people on the streets, and it almost seems like they want to end their conversation, not because they don't want me to talk to them, but they just can't believe I want to talk to them. So continuing to ask questions it's just that affirmation of, I see you, you have value, I want to talk to you, you're worth something. It's just that wasting of our time. That's how we can extend it in love, and show them God through it. It's a beautiful privilege, honestly. But it's hard to do. It's hard to do. I still find myself getting cold feet sometimes. And something that I find very helpful is care kits. They're kind of an icebreaker. We always carry small packages on our backs with like hand warmers, socks, snacks, things like that to hand out. Because a lot of the times homeless are very defensive. They're very on guard. Usually they're caught up in what's called like the culture of exchange, where other homeless people are coming up like, hey man, you got a cigarette? Or like, hey man, you have this? Or, oh, I got that. Where you're kind of almost reduced to a vending machine, and they expect that from us too. And so offering them something is kind of an icebreaker either way, because they'll kind of look at you like, what do you want? Like, you're a stranger. What are you doing? Oh, okay, you're handing me something. You're an outreach worker, or like, oh, you're just here to help. Or it kind of lowers the guard a lot. And at least for me, it helps me step out of the awkwardness of meeting somebody new by having something to give them as well. They're great too if you like package them up into Ziploc bags and keep them in your car. It's a really awesome thing you can just hand out the window when you're on the highway ramps or things like that.
And I will testify to that. I have multiple times just randomly handed out these little care kits from my car window since I've moved here. Homelessness wasn't a huge thing from where I'm from, so when I've been so surrounded by it, and I know it's like it's everywhere in Denver. It's not just in, you know, the populated downtown areas. It's on the street corners. It's at the stoplights. So I would encourage that. It's such an easy way to just like tell someone that you were thinking about them before you ever even met them. And so yeah, you can put like little prayers in them. You can do whatever you want, little encouraging notes. But really just handing it to them, asking their name. Obviously our stoplight, so it can't be too long, but I think it's worth it if you're holding up a little bit of traffic just to have that small encounter. Um, but yeah, so we do lunch in the park. Lunch in the park is something that Christ in the City does every Wednesday and then every second Saturday of the month. And yeah, like we said, we had a few brothers join us today, and it was really really great to have them there. But I would love to extend this offer to all of you watching, to join us at lunch in the park. We have in the past, because of COVID, we have had to, you know, like pull things back a little bit and limit volunteers. But now we're opening back up. We want volunteers to come. We wear masks at the park. We try and social distance, and like we take good care of the food just so we're all, you know, following regulations and everything. But really, it's a very exciting thing to be having people come back and encounter the mission. What Lunch in the Park is basically we bring a meal to Civic Center Park downtown, and we go there at noon. Like I said, it's every Wednesday, and then we hand out the meal and we just sit and talk with our homeless friends for, you know, an hour and a half. It's very, very casual. It has a very like picnic feel to it. Our friends know us very well. They're there lined up before we even get there. So yeah, we're very well known at that park on Wednesdays and the second Saturday of the month. And so would love to have you come and encounter this mission with us. Especially it can be a really great first encounter of homelessness. If you've never like gone out of your comfort zone and gone out intentionally to meet the homeless, it can be such a friendly and good environment for that. And so I would encourage you all to, if you're thinking about it, that to sign up and come and join us. If you've never been before, we will have you come to Christ in the City to do a training the morning before your lunch. So it would be at 10:45 the morning before, just a little bit before, and then yeah, we would all meet at the park. But I can send the sign up genius link to Father Luke, and then he can send it out to anyone that might want it. But yeah, it's a really great opportunity for the entire Christ in the City community to come together. Our homeless friends, our volunteers, our sponsors, those high school students come, like it's families come. It's such a relaxed and good environment for people to gather together in just community. Like it's just humans being humans and gathering together. It's just very, very casual, and it's usually a good time. I've had, you know, like Jude said, it's sometimes you meet one person, you're never gonna see them again. But I have consistently, you know, kept up with the same people every week after week. And that's something that I would love to invite you all into, to come and join us at the park as well. With that, we just want to say thank you so much for allowing some time for us to unfold our mission in front of you. We are so grateful to have supporters like you, as well as for you to give us this stage to present our mission. We just want you to know that this mission is not just for the missionaries. It's not just for the staff. It's the mission of Catholics, the mission of Christians to go out and to serve, to know, and to love the poor. So yeah, Father, I want to turn it back over to you if you want to maybe close us in a prayer, and then we can do some questions and answers.
Sorry. Yep. Great. Can you guys maybe stop sharing the screen for a second? And I'm going to add myself. There we go. Here we are again. Thank you guys. Wow. Before I start the recording, actually, I think there are a few questions out there that I thought might be good for everybody to hear and to stay on the video, before we then allow everybody else maybe to have their faces up here and so they can see. The first question that was posed was, what defines chronic homelessness?
Yeah, it's really the metric of service resistance. So you'll have people who are fresh on the streets and are like, yes, like I'm going to go to the coalition right away, and I'm going to try and get in the housing, and I'm going to use the resources and use the things that are available to me. And then you have other people who have like, I am so disenfranchised with the coalition. I'm so sick of being on this wait list for so long, or I have too many problems within my family and these relationships and this and so on and so forth, that it almost becomes like they have extra barriers. So the chronically homeless are the people who are unable, or who have persisted. I think there's like a metric. It's like you've persisted in homelessness for a number of months, something like that, versus people who have been homeless for a short period one time. So it's your people like what we call colloquially like your professional homeless men who've been out there for decades, and either because there's almost like no other option for them, or they don't care. They're just so sick of it. So there's a lot of despair, I think, in the chronic homeless as well.
As a follow-up of the numbers that you gave, there was, so you say you work with about 1,000. How many of those 1,000 are chronically homeless?
I think the 1,000 is the chronic homeless number. It's separated in between like on any given night. Again, the point in time survey, there's about 500 or so that are sheltered, and then about another 4 or so hundred that are on the streets, and then another number that are like I think in safe havens. I think safe haven kind of can be considered like a friend's couch or something like that. So it's not permanent, not stable housing. So
Yeah. And yeah.
Thank you. Again, for all those who are here with us, joining us, please in the chat put in some questions if you like have them answered. Another question, it's a question actually that I had. Have you, because you're talking about the friendships that you develop and over time, have you encountered any experiences of boundary issues where either the missionaries become attached in an unhealthy way, or they begin to look at the missionaries in an unhealthy way of dependence, etc.? Have you encountered that? How do you deal with that?
it's a hard thing to navigate. Like we have a Google Voice number that we'll give to our friends sometimes, and so like they can reach us that way. And so there's moments where you can start to see that like we become a material resource, we become a vending machine for them, and that's something we don't want to be. Where the homeless kind of don't really consider us that much, or like we feel like we're at their beck and whim, and so you kind of have to set the boundary of we want to encourage growth. We really want them to take advantage of the resources. We kind of want to walk with them, but we don't want to handhold them or enable this kind of inability to use them. And then vice versa, we've had, homeless, people who have kind of looked at the missionaries the wrong way or misinterpreted some of our advances or our friendship. It's especially hard on the female missionaries. They get called things a lot, but that's the role the male missionaries do, is to kind of be a barrier, like, oh no, that's not how you treat women, that's not how you talk to them. So there's tricky situations pretty much every day. I don't think anyone's really ever been in dangerous harm or anything like that. We're trained on how to kind of avoid and understand kind of body posture, things like that. And then also we're trained on like nonviolent communication to really diffuse situations. So it can get tricky, but I think we've been trained how to navigate really well.
Right. And as well, like the missionaries, when they're going out with groups of men and women. So like the men provide this, protective presence, and the women provide this loving presence of like reception and being able to receive people. And when there's both, it can like provide a very fruitful environment. But yeah, when boundaries, I mean, for sure, boundaries have been crossed, and they're crossed a lot. And that's just something that the missionaries, when they come back together at the end of the day, they debrief and they talk about their boundaries and like how this made them feel uncomfortable. And so they can go back then the next week they see that person, and they can set that boundary and say, hey, when you talk like this, it makes me feel uncomfortable. So I would appreciate it if we could maybe talk about something else or something like that. So it's just like, it's working through it with them. We really try not to like just completely like block people off when stuff happens. We try and work through it. And of course, if it's like becoming more and more of an issue, then and it's not healthy for either party to be together, then we wouldn't continue any further. But yeah, it's a work in progress, and we get to be like, the missionaries get to be such a witness to boundaries, and like being able to set boundaries for someone who maybe doesn't have that many boundaries.
It could develop a system in their own personal growth as they
right
work in other skill sets with with professionals or trying to find housing or to present themselves in a way that might be helpful.
Right.
A question that was also brought up was what percentage of the homeless that you guys encounter are men versus women?
Oh, I think I forgot to mention that. It's 70% is men and 30% women.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Another last question that I actually have to pose is, are there any taboo conversations, things not to talk about or like, or not to say, or what are some of the taboo conversations you guys have found?
I think for us, we usually try to set a boundary on anything that could be like kind of innuendo-y or just like kind of raunchy humor. Sometimes people on the streets will use that as a way to like see, oh, what are they going to allow? It's a way of testing boundaries. So we're pretty quick to shut that down because it usually doesn't end well. It can oftentimes be an advance from a man to a female missionary. And so it's a way of just like, we're not going to let that avenue happen. Honestly, though, like, unless it's something that you're not comfortable with, there really hasn't been too many conversation topics that I feel like I should have avoided.
Or
think it's
I guess more on the other end, are
Yeah.
there things about being a this is to understand a homeless person, things that they don't like to talk about, or things that you shouldn't approach with them, like on their end?
Yeah, gosh, that's a hard one because it's like it's hit or miss. I've asked people like, man, how was it last night? And they've been like, it was so cold, like dummy, like duh, like just kind of getting mad at me for asking something. And then if other people were, you can hear in their voice that they're so grateful for somebody to vent about to it. So it really depends on the person. You kind of get the vibe of them. If you feel like they're going to be aggressive or they're going to be like not in a good mood to talk to you, like, okay, maybe let's avoid questions about their circumstances. Because yeah, sometimes if you acknowledge like, hey man, like where was it like, over the weekend, and then you start talking about like, oh, I had this great fun evening with my friends, and and we did this in this building and we did that in that building. It's like it can kind of almost be like parading your wealth in front of them, and so that can be difficult to yeah, again, it's like that gap. How do you share your life with the homeless when I get to come home to a warm bed and a warm shower? So sometimes it's best to avoid talking about that, at least outrightly. When you get to know people more, the connection, the friendship can kind of warrant different topics.
And the boundaries that are established.
Right. And that's just like, yeah, with any friendship or any relationship that you're building, it's like you test, you navigate that conversation and you see, oh, that made them really uncomfortable. Maybe that's not something we should talk about now, but maybe we can circle back to that in the future, like talking about family, that could be a very touchy subject for some people. And so it's like, maybe we can come back to that later, but right now let's talk about something.
Thank you. I think that's so helpful. Then again, in the end, one of the things that I've always loved about Christ in the City, and I think that especially in the age of technology and where even our personal friendships can become so impersonal or mediated through a screen or through a text, or this idea of having to encounter and see the other person and realize that we can't just reduce everybody to a statistic or to an ideology or whatever, that there is a human face with a human story, and the complexities and the emotions that go along with every unique situation, and that we have to be able to always and everywhere, even maybe courageously, break our charity out of the walls of our hearts to be able to say that this person is a person, and that Christ calls us to a personal encounter and not just to an ideological or an idea or conceptual encounter. And I think that's an important thing, and both people are changed and moved. And I think that's really important as we're in Lent, in that concept of conversions, a personal encounter with ourselves, with God, and with each other. I want to thank you. I want to end with a prayer. Thank all those who joined us, and to invite them to stay on after we end the recording to be able to talk with you a little bit more one-on-one. But we want to particularly ask the Lord's blessing upon you, Shayla, you, Jude, all the staff, the missionaries, and that hopefully that you guys find St. Dominic's a home, and a spiritual home for you guys to be able to get yourself spiritually renewed, so that you can do your mission and that we can continue to partner in some ways and assist you guys. And we give glory to God for you guys. So let's end with the glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit. as it was in the beginning, is now, and never shall be, world without end. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Before I let you go, just wanted to let everybody know that next month, on March 24th, will be our next Zoom talk with Father Jim, giving us his experience in the work of Catholic Relief Services in poverty internationally. So you guys are invited to that on March 24th at 7 p.m. Just pay attention to the website, and it'll all be there. God bless.